Infrastructure law to rebuild America, the American Rescue Plan to bring our economy back, and so much more. But the extreme MAGA Republicans want to take it all back. You know, they're talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare.
And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, you know, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you are, you know, you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say, who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages? Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
Are more people leaving California for Texas or leaving Texas for California?
Well, we lost about 182,000 folks in the last census.
But how do you explain that against the backdrop of those very remarkable statistics you just cited?
Many factors, and there's been two deep analysis that drives the number one factor, the vast majority, almost the entire amount.
Wait for it. Here it comes. Almost there.
Impacted because of the visa policies in the Trump administration.
Oh, fucking hell. Legendary! Dude!
Everybody's always blaming me for everything.
All people hear is that the pandemic's over and then they lose their minds.
Yeah.
You know, you have to play the whole thing. You can't just grab two words. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But, you know, we're still in it. You know, we're not losing people the way we were. We have ways to fight it now. It's a great thing, but, you know.
I just got my third booster. I've been jabbed more than I was on my honeymoon. I mean, I've had 5 shots.
Yeah.
5 shots.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
I've been jabbed more than I was on my honeymoon.
On the situation along the border, crossings are up, drownings along the border are increasing. We've been to one town recently where the morgue is overwhelmed by migrant deaths. Are you confident, and do you feel that the situation at the border is under control? Are you doing enough?
So what we have been doing is
wait for it,
doing the work that wasn't done by the last administration. We are fixing a broken system.
Is the border secure?
I'm just going to refer back to the vice president. We agree with her. She is saying that there's a lot of work to do, right? She also said that in that very statement. We agree that the border is secure, but there is still more work to be done. Asked Texas Governor Ted Cruz and Florida Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. Asked Texas Governor Ted Cruz.
Are you retarded?
This is how I feel. There is nothing wrong with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
He has done what nobody else was able to do.
Are you sure?
Angeles and what am I doing here? Of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. For 2 reasons. One, America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. We have so much to do. So let's get to work. And thank you all for all you're doing. God bless you all.
Bruh.
Mr. President, thank you.
There is nothing wrong with Joe Biden.
Stop it. Get some help.
We created the greatest economy in the history of our country.
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective.
The unemployment numbers for African Americans, for Asian Americans, for Hispanic Americans, virtually every number was the best.
Inflation rate month to month was just an inch.
We had the best stock market price ever.
I got that. But guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months it hasn't spiked.
You know what? She deleted 33,000 emails.
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible. And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
I think it's disgraceful what she's done.
I mean, honest to God, that's all I think.
The biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign.
I haven't, look.
They spied on my campaign, they got caught.
Don't.
And then they went much further than that, and they got caught.
Yes.
It was our Justice Department.
Yes.
It was Obama and Biden.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. So wrong.
I think what happened was disgraceful. Should never have happened.
Think about that.
Should never have happened.
Think of how that has changed everything.
What kind of ice cream, what flavor ice cream do you have?
You think I would tell you if I knew exactly what it would be? Of course I'm not going to tell you.
You just come in here with that negative attitude.
And it's much too early to make that kind of decision.
And when I finish, this country will be in a position like it hasn't been maybe ever.
I'm more optimistic than I've been in a long time.
You don't have to go to hell. You're in hell. This is hell. This is hell. This is hell.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then do
And homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
I'm kind of retarded.
This past week, we saw the hilarious hypocrisy over the border crisis continue, with a dumbass Texas sheriff announcing that he's investigating Ron DeSantis. Of course, he couldn't articulate what law, if any, he thought that DeSantis might be guilty of breaking, but sure, he's investigating him. There was also a Soros-linked law firm that got a bunch of them together to file a class action lawsuit. Only problem with that is DeSantis has the receipts. And by receipts, I mean the consent forms they signed, making it totally impossible for them to really do anything about it. And the not in my backyard virtue signaling is on full display for everybody except seemingly the most hardened dumbasses to finally comprehend.
For months, Republican governors have sent busloads of illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities like New York, D.C., and Chicago with the message of, if you like them so much, they're yours, okay? Well, just in time for Hispanic Heritage Month, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis upped the game by sending 2 planefuls of immigrants to the East Coast elite's favorite vacation island, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. I personally think it's genius. But I wish that governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott would give Democratic governors and mayors more of a heads up, because then that would expose the hypocrisy of the Democrats, which is they don't want immigrants here either. They don't want immigrants here either.
The faces of the fucking people on that panel are just too much. But I don't think the fact that he didn't really give them a heads up really matters that much. I mean, after all, this was a sanctuary island like Chicago and DC and New York and so many other deep blue big cities. They put out the meaningless gesture of all are welcome here, figuring, well, we're a fucking island. I mean, it's not like we're really gonna have to deal with it. And the fact that it was just 50 people, just 50 fucking people. And oh, that's too much.
What are the most difficult challenges right now?
The difficult challenges are we have, at some point in time, they have to move from here to somewhere else, right? We don't have the services to take care of 50 immigrants, and we certainly don't have housing. We're in a housing crisis as we are on this island, and so we can't house everyone here that lives here and works here. We don't have housing for 50 more people.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Oh, they have a housing crisis, yeah. But it's fine for thousands of these people to live on the streets in tent cities and condominiums made of cardboard on the streets of El Paso, San Antonio, and tons of small towns all along the Texas border. And they couldn't even find a way to help 50 fucking people. And while they keep trying to pretend like they inherited a broken border, we all remember what it was that Joey Skidmark said during the presidential debates.
What I would do as president is several more things, because things have changed. I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. Surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
It's also hilarious watching this rift grow between the classical gay rights advocates and just generally gay people that don't lack all common sense critical thinking and aren't of the toe the line no matter what mentality, and this new generation of activists that see no problem in sexualizing kids that haven't even hit puberty, with some of them trying to mainstream minor attracted persons, also known as pedophiles, saying that, oh, well, this is just a different kind of sexual orientation. You had this group, Gays Against Groomers, get banned off of PayPal and Venmo, and even had their fucking Google accounts terminated. And it gets reported that they're an anti-trans hate group. But they're not anti-trans. They're really against one thing. Their message is pretty simple.
I tell you, no fucking kids!
But now that's all it takes for you to be branded a hateful bigot who shouldn't even be allowed to conduct commerce. So your kid's teacher likes to dress up like a school mascot because they identify as a otherkin furry? You have a problem with that?
How dare you!
Or if you're a gay rights pioneer going all the way back to the days of Stonewall and one of the co-founders of the Pride March in NYC, and you dare to hold up a sign that says, blackface, women face, no thank you at a Pride event?
How dare you!
Yeah, that's enough for you to get violently assaulted. And people like this from back in the day lived with getting the ever-loving shit beat out of you on a regular basis. So something tells me if you think you're just going to be able to intimidate them into going along with what you believe, well, good luck with that. Please consider liking, subscribing, sharing this video, or leaving a comment. Because every time you do nothing, Vladimir Putin will shoot another puppy. So did you hear the one about the FBI agent who was kicked out of the bureau for daring to grow a conscience? Yes, it appears that having a sense of morals and ethics and principles in the most basic sense are not conducive with working for the Department of Justice. He and about 20 other whistleblowers have come forward recently to complain about what the FBI has been doing. See, he was working in child sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and he was told that these domestic terrorists, you know, like the ones that did the insurrection, higher priority than, you know, child pornography. And being that he's not a disgusting, brainless yes man, he had a problem with that. So the FBI responded with,
how dare you!
Yeah, turn in your badge and gun and we're gonna escort you out of the fucking property. And you would think that 20 whistleblowers coming forward to report misdeeds from within the FBI would be a bigger story than it is, but I haven't seen a fucking peep about it on the TV network news. I wonder why that is.
Anyone? 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 You? Anyone? You?
Kinda like this other story. Pentagon opens sweeping review of clandestine psychological operations. I love how outlets like the Washington Post and the New York Times, whenever it's a story that should be concerning to Americans, especially regarding freedom, they give it the most wordy, unsexy headline possible. You almost fall asleep just reading the fucking headline. But basically it's saying that the Pentagon is gonna be investigating themselves more or less because they got caught conducting psyops online against the American people, having these fake bot accounts promote pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russian sentiment leading up to the conflict we're now seeing, which could lead to World War III. I wonder how this investigation will turn out. I remember the time that the Pentagon announced that $3 trillion were missing from their books, and they were going to be investigating that. Only the very next day, somebody happened to fly a fucking plane, allegedly, into the same part of the building where that investigation was being conducted, destroying all the evidence. So yeah, I'm sure they seriously want to get to the bottom of this one. Meanwhile, over in Russia, Putin gave a televised address to the Russian people for really the first time since the war has started, announcing a general mobilization, at least 300,000 people, maybe up to 1 million people getting called out of reserves, and also reiterating that he's not bluffing with this nuclear shit. And now it's being reported that Russian airlines have been ordered to stop selling tickets to people of fighting age, because like in basically any other country, not everybody's going to be on board for the war. Exactly how many people in Russia it is that are completely against this, who knows? The West is gonna try to maximalize it and seem like it's the whole fucking country and it's just Putin's war, and of course the Russians are gonna try to minimalize it and say it's just a tiny fraction. So who knows what the real numbers are. But one thing that should be crystal clear by now is that there is no way that they're just gonna pack it in and say, fuck it, let's go home, we gave it the old college try. They lost more soldiers in 6 months of this war than the US lost in 20 years of the War on Terror. So there's no way they're backing down now. It's just been a tit for tat, back and forth. You escalate a little, we escalate a little, you escalate a little, and there's only so much escalating you can do before you get to... And just like in the US when the Iraq War started, yeah, you had a sizable part of the population that was anti-war and protesting it, but then you had a lot of people that also completely bought into Bush's, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists bullshit. And likewise in Russia, there's still a lot of people that support this war. It's easy to call them evil, sneaky Russians trying to bring back the Soviet Empire, but if they had overthrown the government of Mexico, installed a puppet, and started trying to put military hardware right on our border, then you might know how they feel. And there was this streamer on Twitch who was live streaming 24 hours a day a gas stove burning, basically trolling all the European countries who are going to be in deep shit this winter when they have to choose between heating their house and eating something besides ramen noodles. But in Russia, he could keep all the burners on his gas stove going 24/7 for less than $1.50 a month. Things are going to get pretty interesting in Europe this winter. And here in the US for that matter. Keeping your house warm is going to get pretty expensive in the next few months. Down here where I live in South Florida, that's not going to be a problem at all. Between increases in rent and food and everything else, it's going to get hairy. And let's not forget what the Federal Reserve, the experts of all experts, were saying a year ago. They were saying that inflation is transitory, it's not going to be a problem, there's not going to be a recession. They were saying they weren't going to raise rates until 2 years from now. Inflation this year was only supposed to be 2%. And even the 8.3 that they're claiming is a bullshit number. It's higher than that. When they tell you that, oh, well, inflation is only up 10% for food, but when you go to the grocery store, it costs twice as much for the same shit you always get, you start to think that maybe he was lying to me. And what are these same people telling us now? Oh, that everything's fine. I mean, inflation's a little higher than we expected, but, the economic recovery is underway. Pay no attention to the FedEx CEO that said we're doomed, and definitely don't pay attention to the fact that Walmart and Kohl's and Macy's and Targets all just canceled billions of dollars of shipments. I mean, that's not concerning at all. A lot of these same retailers did this shit back in 2020 because of the pandemic. They figure holiday sales are going to be really low, so they just canceled a bunch of shipments and orders and wound up limping into the season, and they later said that they missed opportunities because they had such poorly stocked inventories. So now here we are 2 years later, and these major retailers are acting like they don't think there's going to be a holiday season this year. And most retailers, it's not until the holiday season that they actually become profitable for the year. That's why they call it Black Friday, because that's the day that most retailers move from the red to the black and actually start turning a profit for the calendar year. But now this year, they feel so strongly about this, they're willing to risk operating at a loss for this year. Maybe it's because people in high levels at these companies believe that sometime between now and the end of November,
You're gonna see some serious shit.
and so do I for that matter. I may not be able to say for sure what all it's going to entail, but you'll know it when you see it.
How will I know?
Because all fucking hell is gonna break loose.
Sluncha.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night to the bad guy. 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 Come on. Come on. Look at you now.